At my daughter's wedding, she hung my photo with the words, "No entry allowed." I stood there, frozen, my own face a warning sign. I didn't yell, didn't cry, just watched as her stepfather walked her down the aisle. But when my chest tightened and the world blurred, everything changed. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. My name's Frank Calloway, 67 years old last March, though most days my back makes me feel closer to 80. And if you'd asked me a week ago, I'd have told you I was the proudest father in Massachusetts, about to walk my only daughter down the aisle. Funny how life can pull the rug out from under you. I hadn't even been invited to the rehearsal dinner the night before. "Just a miscommunication," my ex-wife Diane had said when I called her about it. But standing there, watching my daughter Emily twirl in her white dress with her new husband, a man I'd only met twice, I knew damn well it wasn't any miscommunication. "You gonna just stand there all night, Frank?" I turned to see my brother Mike holding 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed me one, and I knocked it back without even tasting it. "You see that?" I nodded toward the photo. Mike squinted, then let out a low whistle. "Jesus Christ, that's not right, Frank." No, it wasn't right. None of it was right, and my mind kept spinning back to where it all began. 25 years ago, Emily was just a little thing with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. I worked construction back then, good money but long hours. Diane was always saying I wasn't around enough, but someone had to pay for the house in the good school district. The dance lessons, the braces. I remember this one night. Must have been 1999 or 2000. I'd been working 16-hour days for 2 weeks straight to finish a big commercial project. Extra pay meant Emily could go to that summer camp all her friends were talking about. I came home after dark, aching all over. The house was quiet. I figured everyone was asleep. But when I passed Emily's room, I saw the light under her door. I knocked softly. "Emmy, you still up, kiddo?" She opened the door in her pajamas, clutching the teddy bear I'd given her for her 5th birthday. Her eyes were red. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "You missed my recital." Her voice was so small. "I was the butterfly, Daddy, the one in the middle." My stomach dropped. The spring dance recital. It had completely slipped my mind with all the overtime. "Oh, Emmy, I'm so sorry." I crouched down, ignoring how my knees cracked. "Daddy's been working really hard, but that's no excuse." Mommy said you don't care about my dancing. She hugged that bear tighter. The words hit me like a slap. "That's not true. Not true at all. I work so hard because I care so much." But even as I said it, I wondered if Diane was right. Maybe I was choosing work over them too often. Maybe providing wasn't the same as being there. I stayed up with Emily that night, and she performed her whole butterfly dance routine in the living room, just for me. I clapped until my hands hurt. After that, I tried to be more present. Cut back on overtime when I could. But the damage was already seeping in, like water through concrete. Slow, persistent, eroding the foundation. The divorce happened when Emily was 15. Diane said she couldn't do it anymore. The distance between us had grown too wide. I didn't fight it much. Maybe I should have. I got an apartment 20 minutes away. Every other weekend, Emily would stay with me. At first, she'd be sullen, barely speaking. But I kept trying. I learned to cook more than just burgers on the grill. I painted her room purple, her favorite color. Slowly, things got better. By the time she left for college, we could talk again. Really talk. I thought we'd turned a corner. Then came graduation. I sat in the audience, watching my baby girl accept her diploma. Diane was there with her new husband, Richard, some finance guy with perfect teeth and a country club membership. They'd taken the front row seats reserved for family. I was 5 rows back. At the dinner afterward, Emily hugged me tight. "Thanks for everything, Dad," she whispered. "I couldn't have done it without you." I nearly cried right there in that overpriced restaurant. It felt like maybe, just maybe, all the mistakes I'd made hadn't ruined everything. But when she took that job in Chicago after college, our calls got less frequent. Visits became rare. She was building her own life, and I was proud of her for it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being slowly erased. 3 months ago, Emily called out of the blue. Her voice was bubbly, excited. "Dad, I'm engaged. My heart swelled. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Tell me everything. His name was James. They'd been dating for 2 years. The wedding would be back home in Massachusetts, at that fancy venue overlooking the harbor. I want you to walk me down the aisle, Dad, she said. I had to sit down, my legs suddenly weak. Nothing would make me prouder, Emmy. For weeks after, I floated on air. We talked more in those months than we had in years. She sent me photos of dresses, asked my opinion on flowers. I didn't know a daisy from a daffodil, but I weighed in anyway, just happy to be included. I even called Diane, our first civil conversation in ages, to coordinate. She seemed oddly hesitant. Changing the subject whenever I brought up the ceremony details. Emily will let you know what she needs, was all she'd say. The invitation arrived a month before the wedding. Thick cream paper with gold lettering. It listed the date, time and location for both the ceremony and reception. Nothing about a rehearsal dinner, but I figured that would come later. A week before the wedding, I still hadn't heard about the rehearsal. I called Emily, but it went to voicemail. I tried Diane. Oh, she said, that single syllable dripping with something I couldn't identify. I thought Emily told you. The rehearsal is just for the wedding party and immediate family. I am immediate family. I'm the father of the bride. A pause. Yes, well, it's at the Harbor View Inn, 7 o'clock tomorrow. I hung up with a knot in my stomach. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on what. The morning of the wedding, I put on the new suit I'd bought for the occasion. Dark blue, because Emily had mentioned James would be wearing navy. I wanted us to coordinate in the photos. I arrived at the venue 2 hours early, as Emily had requested in her last text. Need to get you ready for walking me down the aisle, she'd written, followed by a heart emoji. The old mansion was crawling with people setting up flowers and arranging chairs. I asked a woman with a clipboard where I could find the bride. Emily? She's in the rose room upstairs. But family only right now. I'm her father, I said, straightening my tie. The woman looked confused. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, never mind. Up the stairs, second door on the right. I climbed the grand staircase, rehearsing in my head what I'd say to my little girl on her wedding day. Something meaningful but not sappy. Something she'd remember. The door to the rose room was partially open. I raised my hand to knock but froze when I heard Emily's voice. I don't care what he thinks, Mom. It's my wedding day. But he's expecting to walk you down the aisle, Diane replied. That's what you told him. I know what I told him. I couldn't deal with the guilt trip if I told him the truth. Richard's been more of a father to me than he ever was. Emily, no, Mom, I've made up my mind. Richard's walking me down the aisle. Dad can sit with the other guests. I've got a special place for his photo anyway. I backed away from the door, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. I stumbled down the stairs, past the woman with the clipboard who called after me, out the front door, and into the garden, where I gulped the summer air like a drowning man. I couldn't process what I'd heard. Emily didn't want me to walk her down the aisle. She'd lied to me for months. And Richard, that smug Ralph Lauren poster boy, was taking my place. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Emily. Where are you? Getting ready to start pictures. I almost threw the phone into the ornamental pond. Instead, I typed back, be right there, because despite everything, she was still my daughter. And it was still her wedding day. When I went back inside, Diane was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Frank, she said, her voice soft with pity. Emily was going to tell you, save it. I straightened my shoulders. Where do I sit for the ceremony? She pointed me to a section of chairs near the middle. Not the front row reserved for parents, but not the back either. A consolation prize. I sat through that ceremony like a statue. Watched Richard walk my daughter down the aisle, his face beaming with pride that should have been mine. Saw them hug at the altar before he took his seat next to Diane. Heard the vows and the cheers when the happy couple kissed, and I clapped. I smiled. I played my part because making a scene would only confirm what Emily already believed, that I was the villain in her story. The reception was in full swing when I finally spotted it. my photo by the entrance. It was from Emily's college graduation. I remembered Diane taking it, one of the rare moments when Emily and I were both smiling, but now it had that caption, "No entry allowed." I approached it slowly, wondering if I was seeing things. Maybe it was some kind of joke, but the longer I stared, the clearer the message became. Mike found me there, still staring. After handing me that much-needed whiskey, he put his hand on my shoulder. "What are you gonna do?" I watched Emily laugh with her college friends, saw Diane and Richard sharing a dance. My daughter looked so happy, so complete. Without me. "I don't know," I admitted. "I just don't know." A server passed with champagne and I grabbed a glass. Liquid courage. I needed to talk to Emily, to understand why she'd done this. Was it revenge for my absences when she was young? Had Diane poisoned her against me all these years? Or had I truly been such a terrible father that she wanted to publicly announce I wasn't welcome in her life? I started moving toward her, glass in hand, heart pounding in my ears. 3 steps in, I felt a hand grip my arm. "I wouldn't," said a voice. Richard's voice. I turned to face him. "Excuse me." "Emily's having a wonderful day," he said, all perfect teeth and condescension. "Let's not spoil it with any unpleasantness." "Unpleasantness," I repeated. "I just want to talk to my daughter, Frank." His hand was still on my arm, grip tightening slightly. Emily made her wishes clear. "The photo says it all, doesn't it? No entry allowed. Not into her special moments. Not anymore." I looked from him to where Emily stood across the room, radiant in white. Our eyes met briefly and she quickly looked away, whispering something to her new husband. And in that moment, I realized the truth. She didn't want me here. The invitation, the talks about dresses and flowers, it had all been for show. "Obligation, not love." "She's my daughter," I said, my voice cracking. Richard's smile never faltered. "And she's my stepdaughter. Has been for 12 years now." I was there for the nightmares after the divorce, the college applications, the first heartbreak. "Where were you, Frank?" Each word hit like a hammer blow. Because he wasn't entirely wrong. I had missed things, important things. But not because I didn't care, because I was working, providing, trying to be the father I thought she needed. I pulled my arm from his grip. "You don't know anything about me and my daughter. I know she asked me to make sure you didn't make a scene today." His voice was lower now, meant only for my ears. "So be the father she needs right now, Frank, the one who loves her enough to walk away." I stood there, champagne forgotten in my hand, as Richard patted my shoulder and walked back to join the festivities. The happy family I wasn't part of. My brother appeared at my side again. What did that jerk want? I couldn't answer. The room was spinning slightly, my chest tight. "Frank?" Mike's voice sounded distant. "You okay?" "You look pale." I tried to speak, but no words came. The glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the polished floor. Heads turned. Emily looked over, her expression shifting from annoyance to concern. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was my daughter's face. And I couldn't tell if she was moving toward me or away. I woke up to the steady beep of hospital monitors and the smell of antiseptic. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was or how I'd gotten there. Then it all came flooding back, the wedding, that damned photo, Richard's smug face, and the world spinning before it went black. "He's awake," someone said. My brother Mike's voice. A nurse appeared above me, checking my vitals. "Mr. Calloway, can you hear me?" I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper. She offered me water through a straw. "You had a minor heart attack," she explained, after I'd taken a few sips. "You're stable now, but the doctor wants to keep you for observation." A heart attack. At my daughter's wedding. If that wasn't a metaphor for my life, I don't know what was. Did I ruin everything? I asked Mike once the nurse left. He shook his head. "Nah, they got you out pretty quick." Ambulance came in through the service entrance. "Most guests probably think you just had too much to drink." He paused. "Emily was pretty upset, though." "She was?" "Of course she was, Frank. Heart attack or not, you're still her dad." I wanted to believe him, but that photo kept flashing in my mind. No entry allowed. Is she here? I looked toward the door, half expecting, half hoping to see my daughter rushing in. Mike's hesitation told me everything. She and James are flying out for their honeymoon tomorrow morning. Diane said she'd stop by later, maybe bring Emily if there's time. If there's time. My daughter's father has a heart attack, and it's an if there's time situation. Right, I said, turning my face toward the window. Of course, it was nearly midnight when there was a soft knock at my door. I'd been drifting in and out of sleep, dreams mixing with memories. Emily as a little girl, riding on my shoulders at the county fair. Emily at 16, screaming that she hated me during the divorce. Emily in her wedding dress, looking right through me like I was a ghost. The door opened, and there she was, still in her reception dress, though her hair was coming loose from its fancy arrangement. She looked exhausted. "Dad?" Her voice was small, reminding me of that little girl who'd missed her butterfly at the recital. "Hey, Emmy." I tried to sit up straighter, wincing at the pull of IV lines. She hovered near the door. "Mom's parking the car. I wanted to check on you before we left." "That's nice of you." The words came out more bitter than I intended. Emily sighed, stepping further into the room but still keeping her distance. "The doctor said it was a mild attack. That you'll be okay." "Yeah, that's what they tell me." An awkward silence filled the room. There were 1,000 things I wanted to say, questions I needed to ask, but they all got tangled up inside me. She spoke first. "I'm sorry if anything at the wedding upset you. If anything upset me, like finding out my daughter had lied to me for months, like seeing another man walk her down the aisle, like having my photo displayed with a warning label." "Why, Emily?" The question burst out of me. "Why did you do it?" "The photo, the lies about me walking you down the aisle, all of it." She looked down at her hands, twisting her new wedding ring. "It wasn't meant to hurt you." Well, it did. I gestured weakly at the hospital room. Pretty effectively, I'd say. "That's not fair." Her voice hardened. "You can't blame me for your heart attack." "I'm not blaming you for the heart attack. I'm asking why my daughter would put up a photo of me at her wedding that says no entry allowed. What kind of message is that supposed to send?" Emily's face flushed. "It wasn't. That wasn't even supposed to be there. It was just a joke from my bachelorette party. Diane and the bridesmaids put together this board of men to avoid, exes and creeps. Someone added your photo as a joke, and I guess one of the wedding planners thought it was part of the decor and put it up at the reception." I stared at her, not sure whether to believe this explanation. "A joke? My own daughter thinks it's funny to put me on a board of men to avoid?" "I didn't put it there. One of my friends did, probably Rachel. She's always thought you were the villain in Mom's story." Emily crossed her arms defensively. "Anyway, it wasn't supposed to be at the wedding. I would never do that to you, but she would lie about wanting me to walk her down the aisle. She would give that honor to Richard instead. Somehow her explanation didn't make me feel any better." "And what about the rest of it?" I asked. "You told me for months that I'd be walking you down the aisle." At this, she had the grace to look ashamed. I was going to tell you, but then you seemed so excited, and I didn't know how to take it back without hurting you. So you thought it would hurt less if I found out the day of the wedding." "By overhearing you and your mother?" Emily's eyes widened. "You were eavesdropping." "I was coming to see you before the ceremony, like you asked me to." She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "See, this is exactly why I couldn't tell you. You always make everything about you, Dad. About how you've been wronged, how you've been excluded. It's exhausting." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "Is that really how you see me?" "Sometimes, yes." She wiped at a tear that had escaped. "You left us, Dad. You chose work over family for years, and then when Mom finally couldn't take it anymore, you acted like you were the victim." "I didn't leave you. I left your mother. There's a difference, is there? Because it sure didn't feel that way when I was 15 and you moved out. When you missed half my high school events because you were too busy or too tired. When you forgot my 18th birthday because you were on a job site in Rhode Island." I winced at that one. It had been a legitimate mistake. My crew had hit unexpected bedrock, the client was threatening to sue, and the date had slipped my mind. I'd made it up to her with a weekend trip to New York, but clearly the damage had been done. I made mistakes, I admitted. But I was trying my best, Emmy. Everything I did was for you and your mom. That's what you always say. But Richard was there, Dad. He came to every debate tournament, every parent-teacher conference. He helped me with college applications. He taught me to drive. He was present in ways you never were. Each example was another nail in my coffin. Because she wasn't wrong. Richard had been there for the day-to-day stuff, while I'd been the every other weekend dad, trying to cram quality time into compressed visits. So that's why he walked you down the aisle, I said quietly. Because he earned it. Emily's expression softened slightly. It wasn't about who earned it. It was about comfort. I'm closer to him, Dad. I'm sorry if that hurts you, but it's the truth. The door opened then, and Diane walked in. She looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. Everything okay in here? Neither of us answered. Emily wiped away another tear. Diane approached my bed cautiously. How are you feeling, Frank? Like I just found out I've been replaced. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Dad, Emily started, but Diane cut her off. Emily, why don't you go get yourself a coffee? I need a minute with your father. Our daughter looked relieved for the excuse to escape. After she left, Diane took the chair beside my bed. You haven't been replaced, Frank. I laughed without humor. Could have fooled me, Diane sighed, looking suddenly older than her 58 years. Emily loves you. But she's complicated. And you have to admit, your relationship with her has always been strained because you poisoned her against me after the divorce. Her eyes flashed with anger. And is that what you think? That I've spent the last 12 years turning our daughter against you? Give me some credit, Frank, and give Emily some credit too. She's capable of forming her own opinions. I looked away, unwilling to admit she might be right. It was easier to believe Diane had orchestrated all this than to face the possibility that I'd failed so badly as a father that my own daughter preferred another man in my place. She says the photo was a joke, I said after a moment, from her bachelorette party. Diane's expression confirmed it before she spoke. It was in poor taste. I told her friends as much when I saw it. I had no idea someone would put it up at the reception. But you didn't take it down when you saw it there. She had the decency to look guilty. No, I didn't. I should have. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our shared history filling the space between us. Diane and I had been married for 17 years. Once we'd loved each other enough to create a life together. Now we were practically strangers, connected only by the daughter who seemed to be slipping away from me. Why did you really come tonight, Diane? She considered the question. Because despite everything, I don't hate you, Frank. I never have. And I don't want Emily to hate you either. Could have fooled me. I know you think I've been working against you all these years, but that's not true. I've defended you more times than you know. She leaned forward. But you need to understand something. Emily's perception of you was shaped by your actions, not my words. I wanted to argue, to defend myself again, but something in Diane's expression stopped me. For the first time in years, she was talking to me without anger or resentment, just honesty. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you want a relationship with your daughter, you need to look at yourself. Really look. Because the story you've been telling yourself, that I turned her against you, that Richard stole your place, it's not the whole truth. My heart monitor beeped a little faster as her words sank in. What is the whole truth, then? Diane stood up, smoothing her dress. I think that's something you need to figure out for yourself, Frank. But I'd start by asking why Emily felt she needed to lie to you about the wedding. Why she couldn't just tell you the truth from the beginning. Before I could respond, the door opened again and Emily returned, holding a coffee cup and looking uncertain. We should go, Diane told her. Your flight's early tomorrow and you need rest. Emily nodded, then approached my bed. After a moment's hesitation, she leaned down and kissed my cheek. Get well soon, Dad. I'll call you when we get back from the honeymoon. I wanted to hold on to her, to make her stay and really talk to me. But I just nodded. Have a good trip, Emmy. After they left, I lay awake for hours, replaying conversations from years past, searching for clues I might have missed. Had I really been so blind, so self-centered that I couldn't see how my own daughter was slipping away? The next morning, Mike came to drive me home. The doctors had cleared me, with instructions for rest and follow-up appointments. As we pulled away from the hospital, my phone pinged with a message. It was from Emily. "Boarding now. Love you, Dad." 3 small words that shouldn't have meant so much. But they did. "You okay?" Mike asked, glancing over at me. I nodded, throat tight. I think I need to figure some things out." "Like what?" I stared out the window at the passing scenery, at the world continuing on after my own had been turned upside down. Like whether I've been lying to myself for years about what kind of father I really was. When we reached my apartment, Mike helped me inside and got me settled. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Frank, I think you were a better father than you're giving yourself credit for. But maybe not as good as you remember." After he left, I sat alone in my quiet apartment, surrounded by photos of Emily through the years, carefully curated memories that told the story I wanted to believe. But now I wondered what pictures I wasn't seeing, what moments hadn't been captured because I simply wasn't there. I picked up my phone and opened my recent calls. There, several entries down, was a name I hadn't contacted in years, Dr. Marshall, my old therapist from right after the divorce. Before I could talk myself out of it, I hit the call button, because Diane was right about one thing. I needed to figure out the truth, the whole truth. Not just about what happened at the wedding, but about the years leading up to it. About the father I thought I was, versus the father Emily had experienced. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I discovered. Dr. Marshall hadn't changed much in the decade since. I'd last seen him, still had that salt and pepper beard, those wire-rimmed glasses, and a way of looking at you that made you feel both seen and exposed. It's been a long time. "Frank," he said, gesturing to the familiar leather chair across from his desk. "What brings you back?" I settled into the chair, wincing slightly. My chest still ached from the heart attack, though the doctors assured me the damage had been minimal. "My daughter got married 3 days ago," I said, "and I think I've been lying to myself about our relationship for years." Over the next hour, I poured out everything. The wedding disaster, the photo, Richard walking Emily down the aisle, my heart attack, and the painful conversation in the hospital. Dr. Marshall listened without interruption, jotting occasional notes. When I finished, he set his notepad aside. "What do you want from these sessions, Frank? What's your goal?" I hadn't really thought about it in those terms. "I guess I want to understand what went wrong, how I lost my daughter without even realizing it was happening." He nodded. "That's a good start. But I want to suggest something that might be difficult. What if understanding isn't enough? What if you also need to accept responsibility for your part in this situation?" "I've admitted I made mistakes," I said defensively. "There's a difference between acknowledging mistakes and truly understanding their impact." He leaned forward. "Let's try something. I want you to make a timeline of Emily's life, the significant moments, both good and bad. Mark which ones you were present for and which ones you missed." It seemed like a simple exercise. I left his office with a notebook and a homework assignment that I figured would take an hour. Tops. I was wrong. Back in my apartment, I spread out old photo albums, school calendars I'd kept in boxes, and my work journals. I started with Emily's birth. I'd been there, of course, holding Diane's hand through 20 hours of labor. First steps, first words, present for both. But as Emily got older, the gaps started appearing. First day of kindergarten, I'd been there taking pictures with a disposable camera. First grade, I dropped her off on my way to work. Second grade, I'd been on a job site 2 hours away. The pattern continued through elementary school, present for some milestones, absent for others. Middle school was worse. Debate tournaments, science fairs, parent-teacher conferences. I'd missed more than half. My work journal showed why. Bigger projects, more responsibility, better pay. I'd told myself it was all for Emily's future, for her college fund. High school revealed the biggest gaps. Her first dance recital as lead missed it for a contract meeting. Her 16th birthday, I'd shown up late with a hastily wrapped present. When she got accepted to her dream college, I'd been in the hospital with a work injury. Not even her mother could reach me for hours. The divorce happened right before her sophomore year of high school. After that, the timeline showed regular visitations, but fewer significant events. I'd been relegated to the periphery of her life, receiving updates rather than witnessing moments. And then came the entry that stopped me cold. Emily's 18th birthday. Forgot. Working in Rhode Island. I remembered Emily's words in the hospital. When you forgot my 18th birthday because you were on a job site in Rhode Island, she'd remembered the exact location, the exact reason. While I'd written it off as an unfortunate slip-up, she'd carried it as evidence of where she ranked in my priorities. By the time I finished the timeline, it was 3 a.m., and the truth was laid out before me in black and white. I hadn't been the father I thought I was, not even close. For the next 2 weeks, while Emily was on her honeymoon, I dove deeper. Dr. Marshall suggested I speak with people who had observed my relationship with Emily over the years, to get outside perspectives on what I might have missed. My brother Mike was brutally honest. You were always talking about how much you did for that kid, but you weren't actually doing it with her. There's a difference. My old foreman Lloyd, who'd known Emily since she was little, was gentler but no less direct. You'd bring her to the site sometimes, show her off to the crew. But then you'd get caught up in work, and she'd be sitting alone in your truck for hours, reading or whatever. I used to think, man, that little girl's got patience. Even my neighbor, Mrs. Petrovich, who'd sometimes watched Emily after school, had observations. She used to watch the clock when you were late. Never complained, but I could see her counting the minutes. Children notice these things, Frank. They notice everything. Each conversation was another piece of evidence in the case against me, not as a villain, but as something perhaps worse, an absent hero. A father who believed his sacrifices were enough, who confused providing with parenting. Emily and James returned from their honeymoon on a Sunday. She called me that evening as promised. "How are you feeling, Dad?" she asked, her voice tinny through the phone. "Better," I said. "How was Maui?" "Beautiful." "James got sunburned the first day." She laughed, and I could hear the happiness in her voice. "We have some pictures to show you if you want." "I'd like that," I said, surprised by the invitation. There was a pause. "Actually, we were thinking of coming over tomorrow night, if that works." "Nothing fancy, just to check on you and show you the photos." I agreed immediately, trying not to sound too eager. After we hung up, I spent the next day cleaning my apartment like a madman, dusting shelves that hadn't been touched in years, vacuuming corners, even buying fresh flowers for the table. They arrived at 6. Emily carrying a bottle of wine, James with a laptop tucked under his arm. The first few minutes were awkward, stilted conversation about flight delays and weather. But once we settled in the living room with the photos, things eased. Emily narrated their trip, swiping through images of beaches and sunsets, luau's and snorkeling adventures. James seemed like a decent guy, attentive to Emily in a way that made me think he truly loved her. I tried to focus on that instead of my lingering resentment. After the photos, over dinner I'd ordered from Emily's favorite Italian place. She looked at me with uncertainty. "Dad, about the wedding." I shook my head. "We don't have to talk about that now." "No, I think we do." She set down her fork. "I've been thinking a lot about it, and I owe you an apology. The photo thing was horrible, even if it wasn't intentional. And I should have been honest about wanting Richard to walk me down the aisle." Her directness surprised me. The old Emily, or rather the Emily I thought I knew, would have danced around the subject, avoided confrontation. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But I've been doing some thinking too. A lot, actually. And I realize I haven't been honest with myself about what kind of father I was to you." Emily's eyes widened slightly. James looked between us, clearly unsure if he should be part of this conversation. "Maybe I should give you two some privacy," he suggested, starting to rise. "No," I said. "Stay. You're family now, and this concerns you too." I took a deep breath and pulled out the timeline I'd been working on, now refined, organized, and brutally honest. I passed it to Emily. "What's this?" she asked, scanning the first page. It's a record of your life, the important moments. And whether I was there or not, my voice cracked slightly. Besitid, I've been telling myself a story for years, that I was a good father who got pushed out after the divorce. But the truth is, I was already on the outside looking in long before your mother and I split up. Emily flipped through the pages slowly, her expression unreadable. When she reached the entry about her 18th birthday, she paused. You remembered, she said softly. I remembered after you mentioned it in the hospital. But I should have remembered then, Emmy. There's no excuse, she continued reading, occasionally nodding as if confirming memories of her own. When she finished, she passed the timeline to James, who glanced at it briefly before setting it aside, sensing this wasn't really for him. Why did you make this? Emily asked. Because I needed to see the truth. And because I owe you an apology, not just for the things I did wrong, but for not understanding how they affected you, for making everything about my intentions instead of your experience. The words were coming easier now, flowing from the insights I'd gained over the past weeks. I thought being a good father meant providing, making sure you had a nice house, good schools, money for college. But I missed the most important part, being there. Really being there, not just physically, but emotionally, present. I swallowed hard. Richard gave you that, and as much as it kills me to admit it, he deserved to walk you down the aisle. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Dad, let me finish, please. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty or to get sympathy. I'm saying it because I want to do better. I want to be part of your life, your real life, not just the big moments. If you'll let me. For a long moment, Emily was silent, her hand still in mine. Then she squeezed it gently. I'd like that, she said. But I need you to understand something too. I don't hate you, Dad. I never have. But it's hard to be close to someone who doesn't seem to want to know the real you. What do you mean? You've always had this image of me as your little girl, the one who did ballet and got straight A's, but you missed so much of who I became. Do you even know what I do at my job? Or what James and I argue about? Or why I stopped dancing in college? I didn't. I realized with a sinking feeling that our conversations over the years had been superficial, pleasant but lacking depth. I knew the outline of her life, but not the details that made it real. I want to know, I said. All of it. Emily smiled through her tears. Well, that might take a while. I've got time, I promised. All the time in the world. Over the next 6 months, we rebuilt our relationship, not as the father and daughter we used to be, but as the adults we'd become. We had dinner every Sunday, sometimes with James, sometimes just the two of us. She told me about her work as an environmental consultant, her dreams of starting her own firm someday. I shared stories from my construction days that I'd never told her before. The camaraderie, the pride in creating something lasting. We had hard conversations too, about the divorce, about Richard, about the years we'd lost. Sometimes we argued, sometimes we cried, but we always came back to the table the next week, ready to try again. One Sunday in early spring, as we walked through the park after dinner, Emily linked her arm through mine. I have something to tell you, she said, a nervous smile playing at her lips. My heart skipped. What is it? James and I... We're having a baby. You're going to be a grandfather. The world seemed to stop for a moment. A grandfather? She nodded, watching my face carefully. Due in October. And Dad? We want you involved, really involved. Not just for holidays or photographs, but for the messy, everyday stuff too. I pulled her into a hug, careful not to squeeze too tight. I wouldn't have it any other way. As we continued our walk, making plans and sharing dreams for this new chapter, I realized something profound. It's never too late to become the person your child needs you to be. The father I should have been for Emily. I could be for her child, present, attentive, fully engaged. The photo from the wedding still haunts me sometimes. No entry allowed. But now I understand it wasn't just a cruel joke or a mistake. It was a warning sign I should have seen years earlier. A message about boundaries I'd crossed, trust I'd broken, and time I'd lost. But signs can change. Barriers can come down. And sometimes, if you're lucky enough to realize your mistakes before it's too late, you get a second chance to walk through the door, not as the hero of your own story, but as a supporting character in someone else's. And there's no role I'd rather play in the next chapter of Emily's life and her child's than that. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself in my story, don't wait for a heart attack to wake you up. Don't wait until there's a photo with your face on it, warning you to stay away. Look at your life, at your relationships with honest eyes. Ask the hard questions. Listen to the answers, even when they hurt, because at the end of the day, it's not about being right. It's about being there.